Construction will be implemented to maintain substation operations at all times in order to avoid disruption to PATH service. Project authorization in December of 2017 was based on construction cost estimates at that time. The increase in costs is primarily attributable to the low bid exceeding our 2017 estimate, and it equates to $15.3 million higher than in additional construction costs. The low bid is reflective of the current construction market for this type of work. PATH has identified offsets in the 2017 to 2026 capital plan for the increase to the local share for this project. FTA funds are expected to cover 90% of eligible project costs. The recommended awardee, Yonkers Contracting again, is the low bidder. Listed here are the regional economic activity that result from the implementation of the project. Commissioners, I request that you advance these two project reauthorizations to the full board for approval, including the award of the construction contracts to the low bidder, Yonkers Contracting Company, Incorporated. I'll take any questions at this time.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I'm here to request project authorization to rehabilitate runway 624 at Teterboro Airport. I'm also requesting authorization to award a contract to construct the project, which would be awarded later this year. Runway 624 is 6,000 feet long and 150 feet wide and was last rehabilitated in 2009. The runway, which is highlighted in yellow here, accommodates approximately 50% of all flight operations at Teterboro Airport, which totaled 172,000 in 2018. Planning for the proposed rehabilitation was authorized by the board in April of 2018. The proposed rehabilitation includes a milling and overlaying the existing asphalt pavement, including regrading to improve runway drainage during rain events, replacement of electrical infrastructure, and upgrading the existing incandescent airfield lights with LED lights. The total cost of the project is $29 million, including an estimated $20 million for construction. The remaining costs for this project are for planning, engineering, support, contingency, and allocations for insurance, administrative, and financial expenses. $22.9 million in funds for this project are included in the 2017 to 2026 capital plan. And offsets required for today's authorization in the amount of $6.1 million have been identified. Upon approval of this project, planning and design will continue this summer with the contract award in the second quarter of 2020. Construction will then begin and is expected to conclude 1 year later in the second quarter of 2021. The capital spending will serve to create new jobs as well as to support existing jobs. The total economic activity for this project is expected to be 280 job years and $21.1 million in payroll wages. Commissioners, pending your questions, I ask that the project authorization be advanced to the board for consideration.
Any questions? Thank you, Montley. Have a motion. Members, second. Thank you. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion is passed. This concludes today's meeting on capital planning, execution, and asset management, and I turn the meeting back over to Chairman Arturo.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its component units is now called to order. On June 12th, the Audit Committee met in executive session. Earlier today, the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management met in public session, and the Committee on Finance met in executive session. The reports will be filed with the official minutes of today's board meeting. The Commissioners also met in executive session earlier today to discuss matters involving ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts or proposals, or matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real estate property, where disclosure would affect the value thereof or of the public interest, and to discuss and act upon matters related to proposed, pending, or current litigation or judicial or administrative proceedings. Before we start our monthly meeting here, we have some sharing with some of the folks who are sitting here in this row, the Leahys and the Joneses, who have lost a loved one. And there's no words that we can say as the board to obviously fill that loss. We grieve for you. Our hearts go out to both of the families. But I will tell you, in the week that we lost these two, we had all heard from the brothers and sisters in the Port Authority Police across the board. There was great love and admiration and respect for both. And I will tell you, spoke to a bunch of the folks, actually in Newark, even though the JFK designation was where these two gentlemen worked, right across the board. They were absolutely worshipped and loved by. They came up to me unsolicited and talked about the commitment and sacrifice. Really good folks, and it's a hard week for us, tough time for you, and our hearts go out to both of you. Officer William Leahy served in this agency for 26 years. He was called selfless many times because of his courage for his rescue and recovery efforts at the World Trade Center, which resulted in his illness that led to his untimely death on the 6th of June. His sense of duty and now his death is a reminder of the sacrifices that we call upon all of our 9/11 workers and our firemen and our policemen and all the folks who keep us safe and make this place a better place. Lieutenant Robert Jones passed away on June 15th. Lieutenant Jones held a distinguished record for 23 years at the Port Authority Police, having served at numerous facilities, including the bus terminal, the PATH. He rose through the ranks, was promoted as sergeant at JFK in 2008, lieutenant in 2014, where he served until his untimely passing. It is with a heavy heart that we ask everyone to stand at this time and honor a moment of silence for both of these individuals. Thank you. John, you want to add anything, or Rick, at this time?
Well, I would echo your remarks, Mr. Chairman, and I would say to the family members who are here today that the entire agency grieves in very profound ways for both of your losses. I was able to attend the funeral of Officer Leahy and met his parents and his family. Was not able to attend the other funeral, but I just would say on behalf of the entire agency, as the chairman has said, the entire PAPD, but it extended beyond the PAPD, treasured the collegiality, the engagement, and the dedication of both officers, and they will both be missed very, very profoundly.
John?
Yes, I too want to echo the remarks.
You know, I want to thank you for their service to this agency, their commitment. I had talked to many of the officers, and they were truly loved, and they'll be missed. And and now in speaking to the officers that remain and to sort of work towards that work-life balance that's so important, it's just truly remarkable the amount of positive sentiment that you get. And again, we thank you. We thank you. The Port Authority owes you a debt of gratitude because of what the work that they've done for us. So thanks again.
Thanks, John. And let's just close it on this note. If your entire families, both of you, remain part of the Port Authority family, and we say this with all sincerity, if there's anything you need at any time, call upon us, call upon Rick, call upon the commissioner, I mean it. Any issue you have, related or unrelated, please feel free to call upon us, because we are part of the extended family that the two officers created 26 and 23 years ago. Okay, moving along, and not easy to do, but Rick, we ask you this time to talk about your executive report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to devote virtually the entire report to the work that we have done and which the board will hear about today in terms of the recommendations that we've made to the board to seek public comment on a number of proposals to increase tolls, fares, and fees. I want to frame that discussion, but I also want to emphasize right at the beginning the process. We are making these recommendations and asking the board to put them out for public comment. Each of the recommendations has effective dates, which in turn occur well after these recommendations come back to the board at the end of September. But I really want to emphasize that the purpose of the public comment period and the purpose of the public hearings is to listen, and that we will listen, and we will consider anything and everything that the public, that elected officials, and other stakeholders come to us in terms of these recommendations. They are proposals. Now, we have thought about them long and hard, and I will now outline the framework for those, but I know that there are speakers here today, and I know that with respect to individual proposals, there are concerns, and I want to put our process in perspective, which is we intend to listen. The framework here is that most of the proposed increases that we're recommended are based on catching up with inflation since the last increases, or they are benchmarked against peer transportation agencies. I want to put those requests in the framework again of reporting on the record levels of passenger, vehicle, and cargo that have been passing through our facilities. All three of our major airports handled record numbers of passengers in May, and if you look at the first 5 months of this year, they handled more passengers in the first 5 months of the year than ever before in history. At the port, a record May with an 8% increase, but again, handled more cargo in the first 5 months of this year than any year on record. And of great significance is that during that period, the port handled cargo at a rate that made it the second busiest port in the United States, which is something that has not happened in 2 decades, surpassing Long Beach as the second busiest port in the country. PATH continues at record levels, and again, in the first 5 months of this year, handled more passengers than ever before in its history, and the New Goethals Bridge set a similar volume record. The point of citing these volume records is to underline the need for upgraded 21st century facilities and the need for increased maintenance at existing facilities given the increased strain. Our capital plan, on which our revenues depend, is again the highest in Port Authority's history. It reflects our commitments and our priorities. We must rebuild our airports. LaGuardia, Newark, Kennedy. We must rebuild our bus terminal and improve service levels at the existing bus terminal. We must dramatically increase the carrying capacity of PATH, our commuter railroad, and improve its level of service. We have completed in the last 8 months 2 brand new bridges, Goethals and Bayonne. We must focus on an extensive and ambitious course to improve and maintain our Hudson River crossings and embark on the design and planning for the 3rd of our Staten Island bridges. We must continue to invest in our port, given its growth record and its new position as the second busiest in the U.S., and we must complete the World Trade Center campus. But upgrading transportation facilities requires funding. The nation and the region has underinvested in infrastructure for decades. That simply cannot continue. The blunt truth is that our facilities today are subpar. For the sake of the region, for the sake of every passenger, every traveler, every resident, every driver, the underinvestment has to stop. Our capital plan is the highest in history. We must invest in 21st century facilities, and we must commit to more intensive maintenance and improvement of our legacy facilities. Now, there is a condition. We understand that. The Port Authority must commit to spend that funding and our capital plan effectively and efficiently and to show results to the traveling public. So here is the framework for our recommendations for toll fare and fee increases. We are handling record volumes. We intend to handle those better, faster. We have committed to the largest capital plan in Port Authority history to build new world-class facilities and to maintain legacy facilities, and that is the purpose of the funding. But we also recognize that we must deliver results, and we believe the public can today start to see, we have a long way to go, but start to see the real-world results. At the airports, we're building a whole new LaGuardia. Go see the new 18-gate concourse. See the entire airport under construction today while it continues to operate at record levels. We're committed to a rebuild of Newark Airport. Go see the construction at Terminal 1. We have just added the rebuild of the Newark Air Train to our capital plan, and we will be moving that forward. And in addition, we have recommended adding planning money for a new Terminal 2 to replace Terminal B. That is an entire rebuild of Newark Airport. And at JFK, you can see the new TWA hotel and construction on the transformation of JFK at a $13 billion price tag will begin this fall. We believe that is our get-it-done, results-oriented Port Authority of today, not some outdated image of the past. Look at the bridges and tunnels. There are two brand new 21st century bridges from New Jersey to Staten Island. They are constructed, they are finished, they are in use. We are committed to a multiple billion-dollar remake of the George Washington Bridge. You can see that construction. We are starting the environmental review for a new bus terminal. That has never happened before. We are moving forward. Again, that is a get-it-done, results-oriented Port Authority, and you can see the initial stages of the result of the efforts. At PATH, there is a new signal system, first railroad in the region to meet federally mandated safety standards. And we announced, and you'll hear from the director of PATH, a new PATH improvement program which commits to a 40% increase in capacity by the end of 2022 on the Newark to World Trade Center line and a 20% increase on the other lines. We have opened the two head houses at the new Harrison Station, and in terms of making particular passenger-oriented customer experience improvements, you can now see countdown clocks at every station, and there is cell service at every underground station. That has never happened before. At the port, as I've said, it has moved into second place. That has not happened for 2 decades. At the World Trade Center, the World Trade Center 3 is open. The campus is dynamic. The Performing Arts Center is under construction, and we put an RFP out on the street for a new building on Site 5. A final point. Two-thirds of our revenue comes from non-toll and non-fare sources. We dedicate ourselves to ensuring that the entire burden does not fall on toll payers and and fare payers. 2/3 comes from rents from businesses, comes from fees from other businesses operating on Port Authority land. But that funding is not sufficient. We need tolls, fares, and fees to keep pace with inflation. We need to benchmark against our peer transportation facilities elsewhere. We recognize that toll and fare increases are painful. None of these recommendations were taken lightly. The recommended increases are needed to support moving our facilities up the scale to become 21st century facilities. We have attempted to spread the burden in terms of increases across all of our facilities. We are aware of concerns. We will listen. We will meet with key stakeholders, and we will consider every comment that is made. We want our proposals to be fair and balanced. But I will end where I began. Improved infrastructure requires funding support. That is what these recommendations are intended to do, but we will listen to reaction from everyone who is affected. We recognize that price increases are never welcome, and we will attempt to ensure that the proposals that we forward to the board in September will be fair and balanced. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Rick. Any comments or questions from the commissioners? I know there'll be a lot of discussion for the next couple of months. I think you set the framework, and a lot of work to be done. Moving ahead, we have a special staff recognition today. We're recognizing a Port Authority police officer, Brian Cooney, who took an amazing act, donating a kidney to a former Met, as I understand it. Not a Yankee, a Met. Which set off a chain of goodwill and other amazing things. And I will tell you, it's amazing that a human being would say they'll take an organ and give it to a perfect stranger. I mean, that is just life-changing in so many ways. It's a role model in so many ways, and I admire you for what you have done, and hopefully it inspires others to do that. I mean that. We're going to hear from Superintendent Ed Setnar.
Morning, Chairman, Director, Commissioners. It's my honor this morning to read to you the citation and the accomplishments of Officer Cooney and just give a little backdrop of the story. Brian is obviously a Port Authority police officer assigned to LaGuardia Airport. He resides out in Long Island. To give you a little backdrop on the story, Brian has been a lifelong blood and platelet donor and was looking for a new way to help someone in need. He learned that kidneys are desperately needed throughout the country and considered making a donation. So in his research, he did not know any family or friend that was in need of a kidney. He contacted Stony Brook University Hospital about making a donation to a complete stranger. Stony Brook University welcomed this idea, and after a 10-week period, Brian was tested and matched with a Long Island firefighter named Al Barbieri. Al Barbieri was diagnosed with kidney cancer on Father's Day in 2007, had one kidney removed, and his second kidney started to fail in 2016. Mr. Barbieri's wife, Debbie, also wanted to donate a kidney to her husband, but was unable to be a match. As part of the registry exchange program, Debbie Barbieri agreed to pay it forward and donate her kidney to a stranger as well through the donor chain. This is where the story takes a twist. And I'm a Yankee fan too, sir. Debbie's match was for first baseman of the New York Mets, Ed Kranepool, who was in the 1969 World Series match. Mr. Kranepool was on dialysis for 2.5 years. Brian is a diehard Yankee fan, so there was nothing that got in the way of that. But if not for Brian's gesture, it would not be able for Mr. Barbieri to receive a new kidney through his donation, and through that work, Mrs. Barbieri connected with Brian, and her kidney went to Ed Kranepool from the New York Mets. It's an amazing story of what Brian did, his selfless act. You know, a lot of times, unfortunately, what we just went through with our loss in the police department, we finally have a good news story about somebody that did a great humanitarian effort. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to present to you Officer Brian Cooney.
Okay, next, our Director and General Manager of the PATH, Clarell DeGraff, will provide us with an update of the recently announced PATH Improvement Plan, which Clarell and her team developed to increase capacity at the railroad, reduce delays, and improve the customer service and experience for PATH riders.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Today, I would like to share with you what PATH unveiled last week to address the growing needs of a 111-year-old system. The PATH Improvement Plan, which is built on 3 core components: adding capacity, reducing delays, and enhancing customer experience. The communities that PATH serves in Harrison, Hoboken, and Jersey City have seen rapid growth over the past decade, and PATH's ridership numbers reflect that growth. This plan is meant to directly address the growing ridership today, and we anticipate through the mid-2030s. The PATH Improvement Plan will take a 2-phased approach at addressing capacity. After Phase 1 implementation in September of 2019, our riders on the Newark World Trade Center line and the Journal Square 33rd Street lines will see a 10% increase in capacity on their trains during the busiest times on the system, which is both the AM and the PM rush hours. The AM rush hours occur from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and the PM rush hours from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. The capability to see this 10% increase in our system comes from 2 elements. First, the installation of the new signal system, which will allow trains to run closer together. The old system, which was called a fixed block system, allowed only 4-minute headways during the busy times. This new signal system will allow as few as 3 minutes between trains during the busiest times. The second element is the insertion of 2 complete new train sets from our existing fleet into service during the AM and the PM rush on the Newark World Trade Center and Journal Square 33rd Street lines. Greater system capacity will be realized in fourth quarter of 2022, when it is anticipated that our customers will see a 40% increase on the Newark World Trade Center line during the AM and the PM rush hours. Every train on the Newark World Trade Center line will be a 9-car train, and there will be 3-minute headways during the busiest times. A 20% average increase will be seen on the other lines, the Journal Square 33rd, Hoboken World Trade Center, and the Hoboken 33rd Street. These capacity increases will be the result of 3 capital improvement programs totaling over $1 billion. A fully utilized new signal system, the delivery of 72 new rail cars, which will see increased service, which will be phased in starting in mid-2021 as the new rail cars are delivered. And a third capital project, which will be recommended to the board for adoption for this effort, station modifications at Grove Street and Exchange Place to enable 9-car train operation at these stations. Let me tell you a little bit about the overall concepts for modification at Grove and Exchange to enable the 9-car train operation. At Grove Street, the plan is to extend the platform at the west end of the station by removing the north and south corridor walls, which are along cars 1 and 9, to enable riders direct access onto and off the platforms when 9-car train operation begins in 2022. The second station, which is an exchange place at the bottom of the screen. This will involve the construction of 2 new cross corridors to create new exit routes for 9-car train operations. The new signal system plus new cars. The new signal system will enable shorter times between trains. New cars will be deployed throughout the system, and together with these two modifications, it will enable more trains to run during the rush hours. As PATH phases in capacity increases, we are also planning to fund the planning of 10-car train operations to position us to expedite implementation in the future years. In addition to the 40% increase on the Newark World Trade Center line during the peak periods, there will also be more trains operating closer together on the other 3 service lines. This will result in an average of a 20% increased capacity when compared to today. The next component we looked at was path delays. Looking at the most common cause of delays on our system, we developed a 6-point plan that is highly focused on targeting the root causes of the delays. Here you see the most common causes: signal issues, switch failures, sick passengers, unattended bags, car equipment, and track conditions. Our 30-month program is to address these issues with early results seen within the next 12 to 18 months. Our program includes a high intense focus on predictive data analysis, data-driven maintenance, advanced digital systems that track all equipment failures, focused follow-up to identify root causes, and a revision of maintenance practices to prevent future reoccurrence of the failures. PATH is committed to measurable improvement and will be publishing quarterly improvement metrics beginning this September. The third component of this plan is to enhance the customer experience by having clear protocols to manage crowding at our busiest stations, to adopt the MTA Omni technology and eliminate the need for multiple fare cards, to create and hire dedicated customer experience professional, and revise and improve PATH communication to customers to be transparent, timely, and actionable. To summarize, the PATH improvement plan includes the multi-year capital investment of over $1 billion to add capacity to the new signal system, which with the new signal system, the 72 new cars, and station modifications at Grove and Exchange Place, as well as the additional $50 million over the next 30 months to improve system reliability and the customer experience. Commissioners, I and the entire PATH team are excited and committed to take PATH to the next level. Thank you for the opportunity to update you on this.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions, comments? Great job by you and your team.
Okay.
Terrific job.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, our next order of business is for our Chief Financial Officer. Libby McCarthy will present a proposal requesting for authorization to initiate a series of hearings to get public input on proposed changes to our tolls, fares, and other fees. Libby?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. And before I dive into the specifics of the proposals, I want to provide again some context as to why we are pursuing these initiatives. As Rick mentioned, the nation is experiencing an infrastructure crisis, as evidenced by the American Society of Civil Engineers report card. The Port Authority as well, its facilities, its airports, trains, bridges, tunnels, and terminals are vital to the regional economy and to the national economy. Therefore, the Port Authority has been working to chart a different path with its largest capital plan ever in history, $32.2 billion when adopted in 2017, with a proposal you'll hear about later to move it to $37 billion. We're also delivering on our unprecedented level of investment as we seek to transform our legacy assets into modern world-class facilities, meeting 21st century expectations. But as Rick also mentioned, while there's tangible progress, there's still a long way to go. This investment does come at a cost, and the Port Authority, I'll remind you, is, as you know, is self-funded. It's an independent agency that does not rely on taxpayer dollars or funding from the states of New York and New Jersey. And we do maximize our non-toll and non-fare revenues. We also leverage the private sector capital through public-private partnerships, or P3s, to support our infrastructure investment. But importantly, that portion that is not funded that way, we rely on our tolls, fares, and other fees to support both our operations and our capital spending. Those fares and fees have not increased in years and are not keeping pace with inflation. All of the proposed increases we are going to speak to you today about are rationally indexed to inflation, follow actions of peer agencies, and are necessary and appropriate, and in my view, the only responsible course of action available to the Port Authority. These actions also follow on commitments of prior boards in both 2008, 2011, and 2017. Rick mentioned our record volumes. We're seeing record volumes across all of our facilities. We are also expecting that growth to continue. The agency's airports have set record volumes, passenger volumes, in each of the last 5 years. 5 years of consistent growth have led to record path ridership. Air train ridership is at an all-time high. Port Authority ports are driving record growth, facilitated in part by the raising of the roadway on the Bayonne Bridge. And finally, the Port Authority's bridges and tunnels handle over 120 million vehicles a year. This volume is what is important for us in terms of our capital program. As you can see here, there's over $47 billion of capital to be invested, both public and private capital, into our facilities in the 10-year 2017 to 2026 capital plan. So in sum, where are we? We're making big investments. We're spending that money wisely. We're achieving visible and tangible results that benefit the region. Just some examples: in 2018, we opened the Goethals Bridge, the agency's first new bridge since 1931, built using a public-private partnership. We completed the systematic safety and signals improvement programs for PATH, which was the first railroad in the region to meet federally mandated safety standards. We opened the new 18-gate concourse at LaGuardia Airport as part of the $8 billion total rebuild of that airport. That was also part of a P3 model. We broke ground on the new Terminal 1 at Newark Liberty International Airport. And in recent weeks, and just a moment ago, you heard about our PATH improvement plan. We also began the federally environmental review process to replace the obsolete Port Authority bus terminal. We've fully opened the 2 head houses at the PATH Harrison Station, and we're completed the final major element of ship-to-rail infrastructure that will dramatically enhance our port's ability to both receive global cargo and to ship it outside the New York, New Jersey region. While we're making unprecedented investments and achieving tangible progress across all of our facility, continued investment and progress cannot be sustained without sufficient funding sources. As Rick mentioned, we do generate substantial non-toll, non-fare revenues and from third-party fees, rentals, and other charges for businesses that use our facilities, currently at roughly 65% of our annual revenues, but that's just not enough. We also leverage our P3s where possible, but again, it's just not enough to support all of the investment and operations we need to do going forward. That is why the board has also long committed to thinking for the future and making sure that our tolls and fares keep up with our costs. So let me explain that a little bit more. In 2008, the board mandated an automatic inflation adjustment mechanism to increase tolls and fares, tolls when the cumulative impact of inflation reached $1. That action did not require or was not requiring any further board action from that point. In 2011, as part of adopting specific annual toll increases from 2012 to 2015, the board reaffirmed the 2008 automatic inflation adjustment mechanism. And in 2017, in determining the capital capacity for the 2017 to 2026 $32 billion capital plan, that determination rested on the assumption that the Board of Commissioners will take certain actions in the future to create and raise certain tolls and charges at Port Authority facilities to maintain a balanced capital plan, including inflation adjustments. Given this context, we have been monitoring the impacts of inflation as it relates to our tolls, and the math right now indicates that and estimating the remainder of 19, that we will meet the board's mandated dollar trigger for an adjustment to our tolls in 2020. In the context of that, we looked across the impact of inflation across all our tolls, fares, and fees. And we are proposing today changes to our bridge and tunnel tolls, path fares, air train fares, and proposing a new airport ground transportation access fee, all of which honor the prior board's commitments, address inflation effects, and keep the Port Authority in line with sister agencies to ensure that we are making the necessary investments in the region's future. So what particularly are we proposing? Let me first frame a little bit of context around our bridge and tunnel tolls. The bridge and tunnel tolls were last adjusted in 2015. The current cash toll by mail auto rate is $15. Just to have some context about sister agencies, the MTA recently adopted a toll adjustment to increase its toll by mail rate to $19 for one-way tolls and to $9.50 where the tolls are charged in both directions. You can also see from the chart here that the bridge and tunnels are experiencing steady growth with an increase in activity of over 5% since 2014. And we have a $10 billion capital plan that we've been using for the bridge and tunnel, and that's much of which we've discussed: the 2 new bridges, the rehab of the George, the bus station moving forward. So what is the specific proposal? Effective January 5th, 2020, we're proposing that we increase the auto, cash, and toll by mail rate by $1. Also, in recognition of the high levels of E-ZPass usage, we are recommending that we do not believe the level of discount that is required, that we needed at the time we put the discount in to incent adoption is needed any longer. So we don't want to eliminate the discount, but we want to phase it down. So first step would be to reduce the E-ZPass peak discount from $2.50 to $2.25, and the E-ZPass off-peak discount from $4.50 to $4.25. We are also recommending that we make comparable toll adjustments to all the other vehicle classes. And there is a schedule of the proposals for all classes that will be posted with this item. Going forward, in order to continue to maintain and keep pace with inflation, we are recommending that the automatic adjustment mechanism continue. With the increase with the first increase after the cumulative effect of CPI reaches $1, we have one further reduction in the E-ZPass peak discount for autos of another 25 cents. So for peak, going from $2.25 to $2, and off-peak from $4.25 to $4. with our goal to maintain that ultimate $2 and $4 discount in the peak and off-peak. So from there forward, we would just have we would revert to a regular inflation-based adjustment mechanism. So few other things as we looked across the bridge and tunnel toll structure, we have recommendations on 3 other areas. One, consistent with other tolling agencies in the region, we are proposing that we limit the Easy Pass toll discount to users who are registered with a New York or New Jersey Easy Pass customer service account. This is a practice that is done by others in the region, including the MTA, New York State Thruway, and New Jersey Turnpike. We are also looked at our carpool discount program. And given in the fact that we have been phasing in all electronic tolling across our bridges, particularly the Staten Island bridges, there are technology challenges related to being able to continue to grant a carpool discount. There are some costly enforcement that goes with trying to make sure that the car actually qualifies. And there are some safety concerns with respect to that program. So we are recommending that effective January 5th, 2020, we eliminate that discount program. And then also with respect to the New York, New Jersey, Staten Island Bridges discount program, we are making a recommendation to actually target that program more to commuters by increasing the number of qualifying trips in order to qualify for that discount from 3 per month to 10 per month. So that's a summary of the proposals as it relates to bridges and tolls, bridge and tunnel tolls. So let me move on to path fares. Again, a little bit of context with respect to path fares. They're currently $2.75 for a single ride, and they were last adjusted in 2014. MTA recently adopted a fare adjustment that maintained its single ride at $2.75, but in their case eliminated their discounts for multi-ride media. You can also see here the significant increase in path weekday ridership levels, average weekday ridership levels, over 30,000 riders per week since 2014. We've talked about the substantial investment we're making and the commitments we have to the path improvement plan. What we are specifically proposing with PATH is effective November 1st, 2019. We will maintain that single ride ticket at $2.75. We are also recommending that we maintain a multi-trip discount, but that we lower that discount. So a single ride, a multi-ride equivalent fare would go from $2.10 to $2.50. So this follows the pattern for a single ride ticket from the MTA, but maintains our multi-trip discount. We are also proposing a second step to this in 2020, where we take one more slight reduction in the multi-trip discount, going from the equivalent of a ride at $2.50 to $2.60. We, in order to keep pace with inflation, we are recommending that the board adopt and maintain this inflation-based adjustment mechanism for all fares going forward thereafter. AirTrain fares. Our AirTrain system is a critical part of the airport infrastructure at John F. Kennedy Airport and at Newark. The AirTrain fares were last adjusted in 2003 for JFK, which is when they were first adopted, and 2005 at Newark. AirTrain ridership is at record levels. 20.5 million passengers at JFK, 11 million at Newark. And since the opening, the compound annual growth has exceeded all expectations. But we need to make substantial investment to both increase capacity of those systems and to improve the customer experience. So what do we propose? We propose effective November 1st of 2019 that we increase the single ride fare to and from Kennedy and Newark to $7.75. And again, so that we don't have the long gap of this buildup of inflation effects, we will propose that we maintain an inflation-based fare adjustment going forward thereafter when the effects of inflation equal 25 cents. Finally, we are proposing a new airport ground transportation access fee. Throughout the United States, airport operators have imposed access fees on for-hire vehicles and taxis that enter the airport. We have looked across our peer airports, which we have identified here as Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C., to evaluate their particular access fee proposals, our structures, and what we are proposing is that we adopt the LAX rate structure for the Port Authority's airport ground transportation access fee. That would become effective in mid to late 2020 at all 3 airports and would be $4 per for both pickup and drop-off for for-hire vehicles and $4 on the pickup only for taxis. In summary, we have our unprecedented investment in Port Authority facilities that fuels the economic engine of an ever-growing region. Our record infrastructure investment carries a heavy cost, and inflation-based increases in tolls and fares are necessary, appropriate, and the only responsible course of action available to the Port Authority, in my opinion. The proposed changes are estimated to generate $235 million of incremental revenue annually. And the Port Authority, in order to make sure that we have all of the input and a robust hearing, a chance for the public to comment, will be conducting 6 public hearings on separate days, with 3 hearings held in New York and 3 in New Jersey, and they will be both in the evening and the morning to encourage robust participation. Additionally, we will be accepting public comments through our website through September 13th of 2019. Outlined here are the specific hearing dates, locations, and addresses. This information will be available. You can see that the hearings will be held in the last 2 weeks of July. And as I already mentioned, we'll be taking comments through September 13th of 2019. And it's expected, in light of the information gained during those hearings and by means of the written comments, the board will come back to the board for consideration of enacting this proposal or any adjustments at its September meeting. Thank you.
Any commissioners have any comments or questions? We will defer voting on this until after the public speakers portion. Thank you, Libby. Next order of business, our Chief Development Officer, Derek Utter, will present a proposal requesting authorization to initiate a series of public hearings for input on the reassessment and proposed changes to the 2017-2026 capital plan. Derek?
Great. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to start by just giving you a quick update. As you recall, in February 2017, the board adopted the 10-year, $32 billion capital plan. The commitment at the time was to reassess the plan every 2 years to consider current conditions, progress of capital projects, and the available capital capacity. And today I want to report to you on the first biennial reassessment of the capital plan, which was recently completed. So just to refresh, the approved $32 billion 10-year plan is balanced. It has priorities across every department: the airports, Newark Terminal 1, LaGuardia redevelopment, JFK redevelopment, the tunnels, bridges, and terminals, investment in the Port Authority bus terminal, a new Goethals Bridge, a complete renovation of the George Washington Bridge called the Restore the George program, and the port, projects including the Greenville Yards Intermodal Container Facility, and with the World Trade Center, completing the site-wide infrastructure, including the transportation hub and the retail complex. First, there's been some major progress I just want to report on. 106 projects have been substantially completed in the last 2 years. 215 projects have advanced into the construction phase, going from the planning to construction. Amongst the completions, which you've heard about before, the new 18-gate concourse at LaGuardia Airport Terminal B was completed. The new Goethals Bridge was completed. The westbound side of the PATH Harrison Station was completed. And the federally mandated positive train control at PATH was completed, among the first in the country. In terms of construction, we started construction at the new Terminal 1 at Newark, the PATH Tunnels E and F rehabilitation, the PATH railcar purchase, and multiple projects including involved in restoring the George program. At the same time, as you know, I report on quarterly the performance of the capital plan. There's been a major focus in the last year. We developed a 14-point plan, which we put into effect, which shows measurable improvement. In 2017, for example, we had 64% of milestones achieved on time. Last year, 70%, so an uptick of about 6 percentage points. In the first quarter, over 90% of our milestones achieved. The reassessment of the plan began in 2018, and we went through a very lengthy internal process, looking at every state of good repair project to make sure they were still needed and prioritized in the right order. We wanted to ensure that we had adequate progress, that we were making sure that we had prioritized the projects appropriately, and that we had sufficient capital capacity to deal with the state of good repair projects. We are here today to propose to increase the capital plan by $4.8 billion to $37 billion. But critically important to understand is that 94% of that increase has incremental revenue associated with the projects directly tied to it. So only 6% of the plan requires other revenues. Every effort has been made to identify project-related revenues, especially non-toll, non-fare revenue sources. So what exactly are we talking about when we talk about non-toll, non-fare revenues? Well, as the executive director said, about two-thirds of our revenues today comes from these sources. In the cases of the new projects, you'll see this chart shows a pie chart of the sources of the incremental $4.8 billion to the capital plan. And the largest two sources are higher rental income from terminals, higher than anticipated in our original plan, by pursuing the P3 models, particularly at JFK Airport, and higher airline cost recoveries than we had originally anticipated. So I want to spend just a moment talking about the $4.8 billion and which projects they come from. There are 4 major projects, including a brand new terminal, a brand new AirTrain Newark project. There are 3 other new projects, and there are 3 other major projects. And I'm going to spend a moment just walking through each of these, which are listed on the table. First, $2.05 billion for a new AirTrain Newark. This represents an entirely new project, and it's increasing the capital plan by $1.64 billion. Why only 1.64 and not the 2.05? Really, there are 2 reasons. First, that $300 million was already in the capital plan to maintain the old AirTrain in a state of good repair for the 10-year period of the capital plan. We do not believe that amount is necessary. And secondly, there's a reduction in other projects of about $100 million. This estimate was informed by previously authorized planning efforts, and this incremental $1.64 billion will be covered by many of the sources I spoke about a moment ago. Airline cost recoveries, in this case, a rental car fees, and future period PFCs, and incremental fare box revenue. Secondly, I'd like to talk about the Path Improvement Plan, which Clarel DeGraff spoke about a moment ago. The plan would have $200 million for this program, with the goal of increasing capacity, reducing delays, and improving customer experience. There are 4 separate aspects of the Path Improvement Plan: modifying 2 stations to enable the running of non-car trains in the Newark to World Trade Center line, new fare payment system so it's integrated with the MTA's new Omni system, capital support for the Path's new 30-month delay reduction initiative, and planning work for 10-car trains on the Newark to World Trade Center line in the future. Third, We have a large commitment to embrace the Paris Agreement, I think, as you know from last year. And in doing so, we've set an interim target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions across our facilities by 35% by 2025. Included in this is a conversion of the Port Authority's on-airport shuttle fleet, currently comprised of diesel and diesel hybrid vehicles, to all-electric, zero-emission shuttle bus fleet. We are also converting 50% of our light-duty vehicle fleet to all-electric. This $50 million investment will provide for the construction of the required electric vehicle infrastructure, including charging stations across all of our facilities. And last among the new projects, Newark's Terminal B first opened in 1973, which was the same year as Terminal A. A is currently being replaced with the new Terminal 1. And though Terminal B, which handles foreign carriers, has been renovated to increase capacity and improve the passenger experience, it still faces constraints and is not designed to meet the needs of the 21st century traveler. So we recommend starting a $35 million planning effort to replace Terminal B with a new world-class Terminal 2. And this will help move Newark's Liberty International Airport, along with all of our airports, to the upper echelons of customer rankings, just as our region's passengers deserve. So let me spend a moment on some of the other major projects. These are projects already in our capital plan. The first two, Newark's Terminal 1 and JFK redevelopment, are really things that you've heard about before because we've already brought these to you in prior board meetings. Each was announced and discussed, and there's no change to what we presented to you in the past. What we're really doing is simply having the accounting catch up with prior board decisions. Each has incremental project-specific revenues that fully offset the increased costs, 100%. So to refresh, in February 2018, the board approved an increase of $350 million for Newark Terminal 1, going from $2.35 billion to $2.7 billion, due in large part to market conditions that increased construction costs. The increase in revenues came from an offset, namely higher than anticipated revenues associated with the project. In October 2018, the board reaffirmed the $13 billion JFK redevelopment plan. It included $2.9 billion for the Port Authority infrastructure, so roadways, airfield improvements, a ground transportation center, utilities, and electrical substations. Those things are considered Port Authority assets, Port Authority infrastructure, which is separate from the terminals themselves. So the terminal investment of roughly $10 billion is being paid by the private developers. The private developers are also making a contribution to our infrastructure. So this extra $1.9 billion that we're requesting in the capital plan is fully paid for. It's paid for by two sources. One is this incremental revenue stream, a rental stream from the terminal developers, and the second is airline cost recoveries. The third project on this page I'll just touch on briefly is the AirTrain LaGuardia. Here we're suggesting that we increase the budget from $1.5 billion to $2.05 billion based on revised estimates informed by ongoing planning and preliminary engineering efforts. This will have a net increase to the capital plan of $390 million, net of the $160 million in reduced spending from other projects. This increase will be covered by multiple incremental revenue sources, again, directly relating to the project, including airline cost recoveries, fare box revenue, and future PFCs. So we believe the proposed reassessment of the 2017 to 2026 capital plan provides a strong, financially balanced plan. It reflects an updated prioritization of the state of good repair projects, and it ensures major improvements to the agency's vital infrastructure. And so we would recommend the board initiate public hearings to seek public comment. And on the last slide, I would just show you the recommended comment periods or public hearing schedule, which would include 3 hearings in New Jersey, 3 hearings in New York, morning and evening sessions to allow for the greatest comment possible.
Thank you. Derek, any comments or questions from the commissioners? Yes, Vice Chair.
Derek, this is a prodigious amount of work.
Anybody else? Okay, we will defer voting on this matter until after we've had the public speakers program. Derek, thank you very much. We will now provide an opportunity for members of the public to comment on Port Authority matters. This public comment period, which may be limited to 30 minutes in total, provides an opportunity for members of the public to present their views directly to the board, but does not provide for a dialogue. Members of the public wishing to discuss a specific matter with the Port Authority staff are advised to contact the Public Affairs Department. Speakers are asked to comply with the fixed time limit of 3 minutes. We have 18 speakers listed. First one is Jeff Canton.
Good afternoon, Chairman, board members, Executive Director. My name is Colonel Jeff Cantor. I am the Chief Executive of the New Jersey State Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today to ask and request that the Port Authority consider adding a veterans program into procurement opportunities. Currently, there's no way for veteran businesses and disabled veteran businesses to compete for any type of procurement activities at the Port Authority. Governor Cuomo did an amazing job, a best-in-class program with his service-disabled veteran-owned business program, allocating 6% of all contracts to service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. Every single state agency in New York adheres to this. In New Jersey, there's a public law in the books that states 3% of all public contracts are to be set aside to service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. So on both sides of the river, you have state government that are dedicating assets and money specifically for service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. The Port Authority does not have a program for disabled veteran-owned businesses, and I'm asking for your permission and for your due diligence to put in place a program to help support veterans. I know all of you either have veterans in your families or support veterans, and we're asking on behalf of the Veterans Chamber of Commerce that you consider adopting a veterans program. It doesn't have to be its own program. You can add it to the minority and women's program. You can add it to the small business program that you currently have already. But there's no way for veterans to compete at the Port Authority. And it's very disturbing. If you look at MTA across the river, MTA has a very robust service-disabled veteran-owned business program. They're adhering to the 6% set aside for New York State, but they're actually going even higher. They're targeting 18%. All that I'm asking, we heard today about all of the great opportunities that's coming for construction, that's coming to run operations. We just want a chance for veterans to compete and have a seat at the table and put food on the table for their families. And I would request that you consider adding veterans to the programs you currently already have. I'd be happy to leave my contact information for you.
Please, with the Secretary, and thank you very much for your service. Number one. Two, you should be aware that there's been a long time project of working on the program you're speaking of. We hope to have something announced down the road. So this is something that's been contemplated, discussed at the highest levels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And if we can be of any help, because both the New York Chamber as well as the New Jersey Veterans Chamber, we can.
We'll be reaching out to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Felice Farber.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Felice Farber. I am Senior Director of Policy and External Affairs for the General Contractors Association of New York. The GCA represents the unionized heavy civil construction industry in New York, whose 300 members employ more than 25,000 professional and trades workers that build the region's roads, bridges, airports, and transit systems. The GCA is celebrating its 110th year in 2019, and we are proud to say that our members have been a part of each of the Port Authority's significant capital project milestones since the Authority's own inception in 1921. Our interest in the capital program update before you today goes well beyond the list of projects it contains. Certainly those projects will create thousands of heavy civil construction jobs, as well as thousands of additional peripheral jobs throughout the region. But our members, their employees, and their families also have a vested interest in the broader economic health of the metropolitan region, since they live, work, and educate their children here. Each of them wants to ensure that the infrastructure that made the New York-New Jersey region one of the nation's most productive economic engines over the last century continues to support it for the next 100 years and beyond. The current vision put forth in the capital plan update will ensure that that will be the case, leaving the 20th century in the rearview mirror and embracing the infrastructure needs of a 21st century economy dependent on time-saving communication and convenient travel. By reviewing and updating the plan every 2 years, the authority ensures that both the projects it contains and the resources it requires address rapidly emerging infrastructure needs that will keep the bi-state region nationally and globally competitive. Taking our airports from worst to first, improving existing and building new terminals, as well as providing transit access to them, most notably through the construction of the AirTrain to LaGuardia, reducing our carbon footprint by leading the way on electric vehicles, maintaining and improving the port's bridges and tunnels, facilitating crucial elements of the Gateway Rail tunnels, and investing in the PATH system, the port's capital plan update will continue to maintain our infrastructure in a state of good repair, enhance customer experience, and perhaps most importantly, improve mobility that will reap economic dividends for the entire port region and beyond. We also applaud the Port Authority for taking the tough but fiscally responsible approach to this investment plan. None of this will come without a cost, and that is where the hard and politically unpopular decisions must be made. That said, we believe that the financial plan being advanced today is thoughtful in terms of being as fair and balanced as possible. We look forward to continuing a productive dialogue with the Port Authority as you advance all the projects the plan contains, and we thank you for soliciting our input.
Thank you. Mr. Weissman?
Chairman O'Toole, Director Cotton, Commissioners, good afternoon. Micromobility is a mode of transport comprising light, mostly two-wheeled vehicles. It is growing rapidly. This year alone, 16 states passed enabling legislation. Today, I will review local developments and the implications for the Port Authority. You have copies of extended remarks. In May, New York City Council Speaker introduced Let's Go, a comprehensive plan to supervise all transit modes and coordinate end-to-end service. The section on bicycling calls for 50 new miles of construction of protected bikeways per year and upgrading all 6,000 miles of city streets with bikeways by 2030. To this end, Speaker Johnson also introduced a council bill calling on DOT to implement a 5-year bicycle master plan. Perhaps as prelude, DOT announced plans to narrow the roadway on 8th Avenue between 38th and 45th Streets by 20 feet so it could widen the sidewalks and install a protected bikeway. Also, for a protected bikeway on Central Park West that would remove 400 parking spaces. The New York Legislature just passed a bill codifying statewide use of e-bikes and scooters. New Jersey passed a similar measure in May. This clears the way for a bi-state network that's cheap, convenient, sustainable, resilient, and with a demonstrated potential to draw down car trips. A Portland study of its system found 1/3 of e-scooter use was an alternative to driving or car share. Now, how will the Port Authority respond? The agency has long been successful in identifying trends in transit and creating the requisite infrastructure. Specifically regards to the George, will you prioritize docks and charging stations at path entrances, or will you create mini parks to encourage crowds to gather? Will you restore the mile-long paths as walkways, or widen them to maximize throughput? And in so doing, spur connections, as is now happening with the Bayonne and the Goethals bridges. From its opening in 1931, the George Washington Bridge has enabled the growth of car travel. 90 years later, its restoration affords the agency an opportunity to speed adoption of micromobility, or you can continue to perpetuate reliance on the automobile. Thank you.
Thank you. Murray Bowden? Murray?
All right, it's okay. Would you please give this to Kevin? I checked with him before I did this. He said take it up. I'll have to wait till he comes back.
Thomas Malone?
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Malone. I am General Chairman of the Sheet Metal Air Rail Transportation Local 1413, representing tower operators. My union is also a member of the PATH Labor Council. Our Labor Council is made up of 8 unions on PATH and was established with the desire to expedite the bargaining process and bring an agreement that is fair and equitable to all unionized employees on PATH. This coalition was formed with the encouragement of the carrier's outside counsel and lead negotiator, Gary Dalaverson, who after 2 meetings with the coalition abruptly broke off talks with the coalition, instead telling the National Mediation Board that he wanted to hold talks individually. When talks were held over the last few weeks in Washington, D.C., with 3 individual unions on 3 separate occasions, he was not in attendance. I tell you this because the unions feel they wasted not only their time, but also their resources. To not have the lead negotiator in attendance and to once again leave negotiations with the same previous proposal was considered an insult. This proposal, if accepted as is not aligned with any of the recent commuter rail agreements that have been signed in regards to wages, health, and welfare, or pensions in our area. In over 50 years of PATH's existence, PATH Labor Relations has made it crystal clear we are not Port Authority employees unless it is beneficial to them. This round of bargaining being a perfect example. Benefits such as superior dental, life insurance, longevity, compensatory time, night differential, full-time union representatives paid in full by the Port Authority are only a few examples of the history of the Port Authority, citing that we are a railroad when it comes to bargaining. The biggest example of all being the difference in our pension. PATH retirees, unlike Port Authority unionized or exempt employees, do not receive a benefit from the NISLR, or in a case of PATH management, the PATH exempt supplemental pension plan. Unlike the PATH exempt plan, our plan is not a line item in the PATH budget. Our plan relies on investment returns and increases in contributions from the carrier. The union pension remains underfunded, and in repeated discussions with the carrier, they have indicated there is no pension money available unless we find an offset to pay for it. This request for funding and the retiree benefits it pays is much less than a PATH exempt pension plan in payment to the recipient and costs to PATH. The recent revision to the PATH exempt pension plan, which more closely aligns it with the NISLR, furthers the gap between our supplemental plan and either of the other pensions in the Port Authority and PATH. Many of our members' entire monthly pension benefit is less than the increase in benefits PATH managers are gaining from elimination of the rail retirement Tier 2 carve-out. PATH is taking a position we are locked into a pattern set by the Port Authority. This is patently false and is not supported by the history of labor relations. Since the expiration of our last agreements, I'll just stop there.
Tom, are you speaking for the entire group, or you have Mr. Lacy, Mr. Diego behind you?
Yes.
And-
Mr. Lacy, I have a
All right, great.
He'll finish mine.
Can I,
Why not?
well, maybe we continue?
Yeah, so there's 4 people. Who's the
There's
4th?
2
Only 2
we have
speakers?
2 letters to read.
Great,
Okay,
continue.
continue, thank you. Since the expiration of our last agreements, we have experienced a multitude of challenges that the unionized rail workers at PATH have met and successfully accomplished. Sandy reconstruction, a new fleet of rail cars, a new signal system, the first railroad to fully implement positive train control, and reconstruction of Harrison Station, to name a few. We are railroad workers, and as such, desire to maintain pace with the rail industry. Our jobs are the same as other railroads in the industry, whether it be an engineer, conductor, signal maintainer, trackman, car inspector, train dispatcher, or in my case, a tower operator. We participate in the same retirement system as all other rail workers and are governed by the same federal safety mandates as other commuter railroads in our region. 8+ years is long enough. It has come time for the carrier to come to the bargaining table with a clear directive from this board and get a fair deal done for the hardworking men and women on PATH. If not, we request you join us in petitioning the National Mediation Board to request a joint release so we can end the nearly decade of PATH railroad workers working without a contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's the next speaker? Mr. Lacy?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I am General Chairman Daniel Lacy from ARSA Local 5075, speaking on behalf of the PATH Labor Council. We last became before this body on June 18, a year ago actually, requesting that the Executive Director Cotton and Chairman O'Toole intercede and jumpstart contract negotiations on PATH. At that point, 6 years into bargaining, none of the 10 unions at PATH had received an offer from PATH. Thanks to your intercession, we finally received an offer from PATH. We are back before you because PATH has not moved on their initial offers in the last year of bargaining. This included counteroffers from all PATH unions as well as PATH Labor Council, Coalition rather. When we were presented with a leave it or take it or leave it to all 10 unions rejected that offer that was put on the table. The carrier's initial offer included significant changes to the health care and prescription coverages for the current employees and proposed placing all new hires in an EPO plan that has been independently evaluated as being the worst plan in the railroad industry. PATH has made these demands even though there is a cancer cluster, much of which is 9/11 related, exists and is growing rapidly in PATH. 3 of the members of the Union PATH Labor Coalition were in Washington for mediation on June 18th to June 20th. They were told emphatically by PATH that there would be no counteroffer and that the wage remains intact, which includes the insulting offer of 1.25 in 2013 to 2014, where our members virtually lived that path to restore service after Superstorm Sandy. They were told that there is no additional funding for our supplemental pension plan unless the unions funded out of where the wage proposals that were told to no uncertain terms that PATH would not fund any improvement to the pension plan. When they returned from Washington, the coalition members discovered that the PA had presented a document to June 20th, 2019, wherein they informed that PATH non-represented employees' staffs would be receiving a salary increase effective July 14th, which in many cases raised their salaries on an average of $15,000 to $20,000 annually, which when added to the raises they previously had received from 2012, the most PATH union contracts had expired, the amounts approximately 40% of increased pay, 5% annually, when we were being offered 1.25% for employees who slept on locker rooms and benches for weeks in time to ensure that PATH was the first to restore service after Superstorm Sandy. Many of these employees were dealing with family emergencies and devastations to their own homes, yet sacrificed and put our passengers and the railroad first. I'm going to pass over to Mr. Diego.
Brian Diego?
Yes.
Okay, the Port Authority made dramatic changes to the PATH employee exemption plan, removing the 45% retirement carve-out, along with easing investment requirements, which could amount to more than a $700 monthly increase to non-represented employees' pension, an amount that is in a line item in the PATH budget. There is no pension fund to support these increases, while the increase in pension contributions sought by the PATH unions to simply maintain the health of our pension fund is a fraction of the increase granted to non-represented employees. This June 20th action by the Port Authority was the ultimate slap in the face to every represented member in the PATH unions. We do not begrudge non-represented employees' wage or pension increases, but we demand that our members be treated with dignity, respect, and that they deserve. First and foremost, require a fair and equitable agreement. It is an outrage that this round of bargaining has dragged on for nearly a decade, a third of my career. The Port Authority has hired a consultant to negotiate on behalf of PATH, and I must remind you that during this round of bargaining, the same consultant was hired by the Long Island Railroad and New Jersey Transit, and he brought both of those railroads to the brink of a strike before they settled a deal. It is not our desire to go down that same road at PATH. Make no mistake, though, if this is the carrier's strategy, every union and every union member on PATH are fully prepared to do whatever it takes to achieve a fair contract. It's ironic to us that PATH has announced an ambitious $1 billion plan to improve service for our patrons, while the employees who will implement that plan are still paying their bills on wages from 2010 and 2011. We call on the chairman and executive director to take an active role and bring this arduous and long round of bargaining to a fair and equitable conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you for your
very
time,
much.
sir.
Angeline Mount Talbot? I'm sorry.
I'm learning. I looked at Libby's report last night and printed it out. I was going to speak on Easy Pass, but you have moved forward and you were discussing cultural issues that needed to be addressed. I was going to let you see this closely. It's a $20 bill with Harriet Tubman's picture on it. It's the United States postage stamp. And it's symbolic of how we have to change our thinking. It's the same as Easy Pass. We've always done it with discounts and other things, but it changed. I think that we have to talk about issues that haven't been talked about before in order to get change. I've taken Easy Pass off my car. I've gotten billed correctly from the Henry H.H. Bridge, Garden State Parkway. And yet, when I was at the Thruway there installing Easy Pass readers, but you have the equipment to read the plates. Somebody has to stop New York State from spending $350 million for gantries and readers they don't need. Somebody has to stop New Jersey Turnpike from doing the same thing. I was there on Monday, Tuesday, I can't remember. One of the problems is my mind's going, and I know it, and I am embarrassed about the things I can't remember anymore. I apologize. The New Jersey Turnpike charged me GSP, correct toll, a month ago when I was there, and yet they're going to put up more Easy Pass readers because, well, I don't know. They don't know how to move forward the way you have with the Bayonne Bridge. You're charging correctly with cameras. So why is anybody using Easy Pass readers? You're correctly charging New York and New Jersey for the right fees. Other states not. I was in Maine, no Easy Pass. They took my plate number. They charged me. It's a cultural change. My generation has to give up the power and let the young people take over. We've screwed it up really badly. It's time for change. You have the opportunity. I was going to give you one of these so you could have it for a month to start talking about it and give it back to me. I know I can't let you have it.
No, thank you, Ben.
I'll leave it for you,
Thank
and
you.
if you can just use it to talk about.
Angeline Mount Talbot? Angeline? No? Carol Walter? Is it Carol Walter? Yeah. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Walters. I'm a member of United Air Local 100. I work for SkyChef, where I serve American and Delta Airline. I've been working there for 34 years, making minimum wage. That means working there, I got paid the same amount as newly hired. I do food preparation. I work all day in a cold room. My company gave me a jacket, but I don't have protection for my head, my feet, or my hands. I work 10 to 12 hours in the freezer serving American and Delta Airline, but I get paid minimum wage. American Airline and Delta making more money than ever. Once a month, our GM gave us Employee of the Month award. They tell us how well they're doing. We might get thank you, but that's it. Employees are taking care of airlines. We make sacrifice going above and beyond what we're supposed to do for the flights to be on time every day. But we don't see any reward. We help American and Delta flights, 10,000s of people out of JFK every year, and that's enough. SkyChef gave gourmet workers across the country vote to authorize strike. When we were released, we hope the Port Authority will do everything they can to get American and Delta to step up so we don't have to strike. We don't have pension, We need better health care. Thank you. I'm begging you, please, do what you can for us.
Thank you. Kenny Carpio? And the next one will be Nadia Small.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Jenny Carpio. Trabajo en Get Gourmet, una compañía de categoría aerolíneas que sirven para volar en JFK Kennedy.
Hello, my name is Jenny Capiro. I work at Gay Gourmet, an airline catering company serving flights at JFK.
Mis compañeros en Get Gourmet se encuentran entre más de 11,000 trabajadores en todos los países que han votado para autorizar una huelga autónoma, libres para la Junta Nacional de Meditación.
My coworkers at Gay Gourmet are among more than 11,000 workers across the country who have voted to authorize a strike when released by the National Mediation Board.
Ese es el mayor voto de este tipo que se haya producido en la institución categoría de aerolíneas de los Estados Unidos.
This is the largest such ever vote to occur in the U.S. airline catering industry.
Llevamos un año y medio negociando con Gay Gourmet. Están en la meditación federal durante 9 meses y aún no tenemos un acuerdo. Nuestra demanda son simples y necesitamos un salario digno y un seguro de salud asequible para todos los trabajadores de Get Gourmet.
We've been negotiating with Gay Gourmet for a year and a half. We've been in federal mediation for 9 months, and we are still not reaching an agreement. Our demands are simple. We need a living wage and affordable health insurance for all Gay Gourmet workers.
En las últimas 2 semanas, 1,000 trabajadores en Get Gourmet votaron una mínima para autonomizar una huelga y estar listos para dejar el trabajo cuando salimos de la meditación.
In the past 2 weeks, 1,000 airline food workers at JFK voted unanimously to authorize a strike. We are ready to stop working whenever we're released from mediation.
No vamos a sentarnos y vernos cómo las aerolíneas ganan miles de millones en generación. Mientras hacemos tan poco, estamos exigiendo que un solo trabajador sea suficiente para sobrevivir en la industria de las aerolíneas.
We refuse to sit back and watch the airlines earn billions of profits while we barely scrape by. We are demanding that one job should be enough to survive in the airline catering industry.
Les pedimos como líderes del Port Automóvil que soliciten a las aerolíneas que ganan todo lo posible para eficar una huelga nacional. Gracias.
We ask you as the leaders of the Port Authority to please call on the airlines to do everything they can avoid a national strike. Thank you.
Thank you. Nadia Small? Followed by Karina Cortez.
Good afternoon. My name is Nadia Small. I work as a driver as LSG Sky Chef for 6 years, serving the airlines at JFK. There are almost 1,200 of us as Sky Chef workers at JFK. 2 weeks ago, we voted to authorize a strike when we realized by the National Mediation Board. Why? Because we are dedicated, hardworking employees who are being treated with no respect. Our economy is growing and the airlines are making more money than ever. But we are just barely surviving. What we're fighting is for It's not too much to ask. We don't want just enough to barely survive. We want enough to pay our bills and come to work with our heads held high. Instead, the way that we are treated, they treated us is worse than a slap in the face. My health insurance is a disgrace. It's so bad, it makes me want to take back all my money I spent on it and just take a chance. I used to not have insurance at all, but a few years ago, after Obamacare was passed, I got a fine for $750. So I enrolled in my company's lowest cost plan, which cost me just more than $50 per week, more than $200 a month, just to cover me. And it doesn't cover a lot. I wish I just could cancel it. I'm 40 years old, so I'm recently told I should have gotten an annual checkup to screen for cancer. I went to a specialist to get tests done. They didn't like the way the results of one of the tests came back, so I had to go back for more in-depth sonogram. Even though all of this was preventative care and I have insurance, I still had to pay hundreds of dollars out of pocket on top of hundreds I pay every month. And then I was told I have to come back in 6 months again. I can't afford this. My rent is $1,200 a month, just for me alone. And it goes up $100 every 2 years. My salary is the only income that supports me. Without our work, the airlines would not be able to make all the money they are making now. They can't take off without the food and drinks we provide. We want SkyChef to pay us what we deserve for all our hard work. SkyChef can pass the cost on to the airlines if they want, but SkyChef and the airlines won't, so we have to fight for it. Not just us at JFK, but more than 10,000 workers across the country are ready to strike and ready to be released. We ask you to stand behind us, support us, and call on the airlines to do what it takes to avoid a strike. Thank you.
Thank you. Karina Capel-Cortez.
Good afternoon. My name is Karina Cortez. I work for United Catering at Newark Airport, where I prepare food and drinks carts that are loaded into flights from New Jersey. We appreciate the Port Authority for recognizing the hard work we do by passing the minimum wage policy last year. Without the food and drinks we prepare, the flights cannot leave. We are vital parts of United Airlines operation in Newark, where they make a lot of money. Last year, we organized a union and won our election. Now, as a member of Unite Here Local 100, we are negotiating our first contract. We have not yet gotten the point of having to take strike votes like our sister and brothers at SkyChef and Gate Gourmet. But we are watching closely and supporting them because SkyChef and Gate Gourmet workers cater United flights across the country. We are all part of the same fight, the fight to end the poverty of the airline catering industry, to be treated with the respect we deserve. I worked for United for 3 years. I make $12.75, just barely above the new minimum wage. And I know workers who have served airlines 10, 20, 30 years who make just a little more than I do. We need United and all the airlines to do much more for the workers who served them for so long. Like many workers, the SkyChef and Gate Gourmet are immigrants. Our jobs are hard, but we suck it up and do what we ask for us. Because we are working to support our families, to give them better life. But there's a limit to what we can tolerate. I love my job, I love my co-workers, and I'm always willing to work hard, but I demand to be treated with respect. We are working closely, our union sister and brothers, at SkyChef and Gate Gourmet, and we are proud of their both authorized strike when released by National Mediation Board. We ask the Port Authority to do all that you can to encourage United, Delta, and American Airlines to treat catering workers with the respect they deserve and avoid national airline catering strike. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina.
My name is Mohammed Tipu Sultan. I'm driving since 2005 as 3 years old. I'm a yellow cab driver, and as you know that, the Uber, Lyft, and all these app-based cars come, and the unlimited of car coming and crush the whole industry. So currently, this is the dying situation for all drivers. It doesn't matter you drive a green cab, yellow cab, Uber or Lyft or Juno, anything. It doesn't matter to anyone. The driver are the biggest affected. So in this situation, the Port Authority take a proposal. This is a $4 for pickup for the yellow cab, and the app-based car should be pick up and drop off, and driver has to be paid. I'm totally opposed this proposal. I'm repeating it. I am totally opposing this proposal, and I am with the 200,000 drivers in New York City alone. I'm repeating, 200,000 drivers, New York City alone. We are talking together, we are standing together against this proposal. All you know, there is in last year, 9 driver suicide. Why? Economic hardship. There is a millions dollar, the yellow cab medallion is coming very low. We are fighting with the congestion pricing in New York City as proposed by the governor. And the same governor is proposing this and including the New Jersey. I'm opposing it. As a driver, I'm opposing it. You see my brother and sister standing behind us? There is 200,000 driver is waiting in New York City. As I'm talking right here, I have a 5,000 app, is a WhatsApp and Viber. I send all of this happening within one click. 5,000 drivers watching what's happening right now. They know I'm here. They know I'm opposing this. They know we are standing together. They know we're gonna fight back. We want the mercy, please. We want the bread and butter for our family. We are dying situation. As a driving $60, $70 in a day, it is not affordable. New York City, New Jersey, it is a dying driver. Please look on it. Please do not bring this to the driver. Tax the rich. Tax the fuel company. Put the pollution they are doing it. Put the airlines who is occupied this 3 airport. Put the tax on that. There is so many ways to fix it. Not to the driver. They are dying. 9 drivers suicide. How many you want to be suicide? Congestion pricing, $4 right there, and the garage and the payment, and the car payment, insurance payment, fuel payment, and our cost, our rent. Can you imagine? The $60, $70 I am earning in a day, and I have a $1,800 for the rent in New York City. Can you imagine? You don't imagine. I'm totally against on this proposal. And remember, and I'm repeating again, that I just taxed 5,000 drivers, WhatsApp and Viber. All this picture. And I opposing it. Please give us mercy. Put in mercy. 9 brothers, suicide. Why? This is dying. There's another hundreds of on the line. Just like 2 days ago in the City Hall, New York City, there was a public hearing. There is so many drivers say, I want to be suicide. And now this is a new thing? I'm sorry for that. Please do not do it. You put us in mercy. Look at our mercy. Thank you.
Does anyone else in that group want to speak? If so, please. We've got 5 listed here.
Yes,
State your name, please.
Bailey Desai.
Okay.
I'm the executive director of the New York Taxi Workers Alliance. We're an organization of over 22,000 driver members. Our members drive across the industry, yellow, green, livery, corporate black car, as well as Uber and Lyft vehicles. Less than 48 hours ago, we were informed about this proposal through the media. As you know, Tipu just said, there is such a deep crisis for the drivers in this industry. As you stated, we've had 9 driver suicides in less than 2 years. All of those suicides were attributed to the tremendous economic crisis, a race to the bottom. Over 85% of Uber Lyft drivers were found to be earning below minimum wage. That's not our study. That's a study done on behalf of the city of New York. In the yellow cab industry, where we once had 13,650 medallion cabs that were operational, we now have less than 11,000 on the roads. About 6,000 of them today are owned and operated by the drivers themselves. Many of them depend on work at the airport, especially our senior members. The airports are the only work site for taxi drivers where you can go to and you can park your car, you're technically on duty, but you can take that time when you're waiting to be dispatched to use the restroom, to go on a break, you know, to grab a snack, or even just to stretch and walk around. And I can't stress to you how important that is, especially for our senior members. As the value of the medallion has plummeted at, you know, from a height of $1 million to now less than $150,000, we have seen so many of our seniors in their late 60s and 70s that have come back to, you know, working behind the wheel. They are barely making it. And the airports for them are such an important site where they continue to serve the city of New York, but at the same time they're able to get just, you know, a few minutes of break for themselves. Right now, for yellow cab drivers, the central business district of Manhattan and the airports are the only 2 sources for fares. In the CBD, they're already under a surcharge of $2.50 on every fare on top of the 50 cents they've been collecting since 2009. That $3 goes back entirely to the MTA. Now, if for their airport trips, they're going to be assessed a fee, that's now going to bring down the ridership at the airports, the only other source of income for them. I'll wrap up. In addition to that, you know, we're at a point where people just cannot afford to lose even one more fare. They cannot afford to lose any more income. In addition to that, with these increases, what it essentially means is you are locking drivers out of ever getting a raise for themselves. If the fares at the airports are increased by $4, that means we're not going to be able to get a raise for the drivers who are far below even minimum wage at this point. We beg of you, do not do this. This is the wrong time in history for you to impose this burden on a workforce that is literally fighting to survive at this point in time.
We have the Ali Muhammad, Victor Salazar, and then
Good afternoon.
if you're on that list, please identify yourself and try to limit yourself to 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, the Commissioner. My name is Muhammadu Aliyu. I'm a New York City taxi medallion owner, driver owner. I've been driving since 2001. I had a dream to own my own in 2005. 2 days ago, I went in front of the city council. I told them I want to take my life. I want to commit suicide. Because 9 of my fellow drivers already committed suicide. Why? Can't bring no more meal home. Can no longer support my family. My life, my dream has been destroyed, and I can't stand it. So I want to be very short with you. Right now it's very tough. JFK, LaGuardia is very vital to us. But we're facing a big time competition. I was dreaming about being a millionaire. Now I have a medallion that worth less than $100,000. I still hold that mortgage. I don't even know where to go, what to do. But with you coming in this game, because the city council, New York City and New York State already committed big time injustice, big time crime against medallion owners. So I'm calling on you, do not have your hand on the blood that the it we're going through in the city of New York right now. Because let's say JFK, a customer you pick up from JFK to the city will cost you $66 just to come to the city right now. The competition is taking $45. We're taking $66. You adding another $4, $70 that will cost our passenger, our customer from JFK to come to the city. We will be losing a lot of ground. Even though we do not work for Port Authority, we're part of the system. We serve JFK, we serve LaGuardia, we serve Port Authority, we serve Grand Central, we serve Penn Station. We're part of it. Don't be part of this mess because we are in big trouble right now. I'm calling on you. Don't do it. Don't put the $4 on us. Don't do it. We have a big problem right now with New York City. We try to figure out what to do. So if you come in, it's like you adding pain to the injury that existed already. It's not the right time to do it. This is a crumbling industry. We are deeply, deeply struggling. Every single day we taking our life. And I tell you again, I'm not asking you to talk to me about not taking my life. But please, don't be part of it. Let us deal with New York City. Let us deal with New York State for the moment. This is not a good time for you to add this money into it because we're down. We're about to disappear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Salazar?
My name is Victor Salazar. I've been driving a car over 2 decades in New York City. I've seen the airports change many times. I've seen construction in Kennedy and LaGuardia. And I continue to see us drivers, yellow cab drivers in New York, exclusively dealing with a neglect from Port Authority. So many times we call on Port Authority to fix our bathrooms, to enhance our lives a little bit better, but it's useless, it's still the same. And we continue to serve the city of New York, and now this $4 proposal for every pick up and drop off is just nonsense, considering the fact that what you all know already, one of my friends said, right on the side here, already explained, it's in the news, been in the news, we're dying. When Port Authority is catching up with inflation, we're trying to catch up with simply surviving. It's not fair that those kind of proposals, it's just, I don't understand the reason behind all this thirst for dipping it on our pockets. Literally, you wanted to get in our pockets, and that's terrible. That is just cruel to do to us. And I don't understand why is that this happening. I suggest to hire some yellow cab drivers. We're experts in nickel and dimes budget. Maybe we can give you some advice on that. We budget our own, the very best we can. We don't get people's taxes in our budget. It'll be a different idea if we do that, but hopefully you do the right decision. Take the example of Officer Brian with the right decision. Hope in the spirit of that, you guys do the right decision today. And take a look at the workers' stock over here. Everyone who is immigrant, who's serving Kennedy and LaGuardia and Newark Airport, people who pack the foods, drivers, we've been neglected for all these years. It's time to stop. Look at us. We're the immigrants to serve the city of New York and Newark and all this tri-state area. So, mercy is not enough. Do the right thing. We want to survive. Period.
Thank you. Executive Director? Hold on, we have a comment.
I just wanted to respond in the sense that this is a proposal. We are listening. We respect your views. We would welcome the opportunity to meet. I do want to correct one thing. The proposal is not pick up and drop off. The taxi is pick up. It is only the Uber hear the primary points you were making, and we would welcome the opportunity to meet.
Thank you.
Afkar Ben.
Good afternoon. My name's Afkar Ben. I've been a New York City taxi driver well over 2 years. And I'm just, I would ask all of you to kind of cancel this proposal because our ridership is already well below 60%. We've lost that much work on New York City streets and at the airports too. So, because what this proposal, this $4 would do would put $11.30 as soon as you set foot in a New York City cab, you know, and that's it's way too much for the average person to afford. And yeah, please don't reduce our ridership any further. So everything's already been said. Please consider it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.